Follow along with the instructions to create a small marker materials board. We're going to follow the same steps as we did previously. A printout of this is available under the modules, but you can also just print this on Xerox paper, print it on marker paper if you like more of that fluid effect. But we're going to follow the same steps and we're going to add color. So the first step is to take a pencil and to quickly create some construction lines so that you can see your basic shapes. So oftentimes in this class I do print very lightly so that you get the opportunity to in fact learn how to build your own construction lines. Determine a light source. I typically move from left light source with a right shadow because I'm right-handed, and we're going to work from light to dark, blocking out major areas. For areas that you want something to look like wood or wood blocking, you might want to use the chisel point. For something you want to be more like graining, maybe you use the brush end or the tip of your markers. So beginning from light to dark, first apply grayscale. You can see I have some general gray from the printout, and I'll probably bump that up and boost that up when I'm done. So my two lightest colors are beige and then another light beige. If I can see that and find that color here. Before you begin applying your markers to your final drawing, you're going to want to do some color checks. So I keep this scrap piece of marker paper and I begin to check and play around with the markers to determine which colors that I want. I think it's nice to have a straight edge. You can use just a piece of chipboard or you can actually use a triangle. Starting light to dark, I'm going to use my two lightest colors. This is the Tombow marker, which is water-based, and so you can use the Tombow blender or even just a brush with some water and blend that. So I'm going to apply in this direction. Each of yours will look different. There's no wrong or right answer, but there typically is a light source and a direction of the shadows. Remember to leave white of the page and go right over your grayscale. Not everything needs to be colored in completely. And a lot of times if I have my lighter colors in my hand, I might just place it in other areas of the drawing because as light hits and bounces off things, it gets reflected into the other colors. So that's what I'm doing here. I have this marker in my hand, so I'm going to just put it other places, even though I'm going to come in and color more. The next lightest color is this beige. I'm going to come in and bring some of that warm sunshine into my drawings, maybe even on the marble so that my marble isn't so white. And then I'm going to begin building up light to dark some colors. Again, it's always nice to have a scrap piece of paper on the side so you can take a look at your different markers. This brush is a Copic or a Copic marker. There is a brush end and a chiseled edge. For the wood, I'm going to use the chiseled edge, and up here, I'm going to stop and go to give the feeling of a chunky butcher block. And then I'm gonna let that dry and I'm gonna go over that. Here I'm just going to do a little more vertical lines. If you want to practice using a straight edge, draw your line, pull away. Draw your mark, pull away. Draw your mark, pull away. Again, we can let this dry and so that we can go back and build some depth. This needs to be much darker. This is a marker, Faber-Castell. I love these brush tips. They're not as good for architectural drawing, but they're nice for trees and branches and things like that. And I'm going to come down and bring some depth, letting some of that warmer brown come through. You can blend with other colors. So now you're going to want to start considering the order that these materials are stacked. This is stacked on top of this darker piece. The Carrera is stacked on top of this. And so I'm building some shadows. This piece is stacked on top of the wood, so it'll have a nice shadow. This piece will cast a shadow on the wood, and then I'll bring some more grayscale around. This piece is sitting on the table, so I want to pump up some of that gray. I have some nice spices in my spoon. Some nice spice here. If you have the time and the patience, do some dappling. Again, I have this nice spice in my hand, so I'm just going to put it here and there in my drawing. This is goldenrod. I kind of don't like how the brush stroke is depicting spice. This is to look like spice is sprayed here and here. So I'm going to see if I can warm that up and fix that. So I want this to look like maybe saffron or some exotic spice. I'm working from home, so I don't have a lot of markers, and I found that I don't have a blue that I like, but I found this colored pencil. Again, if you have something, don't just put it once in your drawing. Maybe it belongs a little in the shadows. And you can use a blender or a grayscale to blend in that pencil. So this is Prismacolor pencils, using Prismacolor or markers to blend those. I have some of that on my tip, so I want to get some of that in. Each time I do this, things turn out a little differently. This is meant to be wood. So first I'm going to go in and block out the wood background, and then I'll come in with some graining as it dries a bit. You can do that with a darker color or the same marker as you let it dry. Again, I have that marker in my hand. The instructions are posted, so I've done this, before, and they all look different each time. So some of you will call me and say, hey, it looks a little different. Yep, it does each time you do it. And now I'm going to start light to dark, pumping up the grays. This is 20%. Light's coming from here. I know this is just on regular Xerox paper, so this 20% will lighten up pretty soon. Closer to the edges. You can go back in now with 30. If you want to crisp lines, use your straight edge. Because I'm working wet on wet, these will start to blend a bit here in a minute. Nice cheap paper creates a cheap effect. It's all right. Maybe it'll just look loose, not so formal. It's okay with me. I'm going to go up to 40 now. I'm really trying to make those edges pop. The spoon casts a shadow. You can finish up with some pastel. So this is called Rembrandt Pastels. So you can put some pastels on, blend with your finger. Come with a pastel pencil to add some sunshine here and there. when you get everything where you want, go ahead and use a Sharpie or a Papermate flare. Sharpie for small lines, such as if you want to come in, push, pull, twist, push, pull, twist, if you want to get some graining in. You can also do this with the markers. Go in and do some stippling. If you want this to look like butcher block, put some blocks in. I'm not going to finish it all off in this recording because you have the finished project on your modules. And when you're all done, make sure that some graining goes edge to edge because that's what graining does. It's not all just in the center. Go ahead and use your straight edge and clean up edges. Don't forget going over edges so that everything is not perfect. Nice sketching class, not a graphic Photoshop class at this point, so we can go over edges. We can stipple and have fun with our final materials board. Next week we move into more marker in floor plans and then elevations. And beginning next week, you're going to have the opportunity to do your projects either in marker or in Photoshop. So the process will be the same whether we're in Photoshop or using markers. For those circles, I want to use a circle template. I can find one. You can hear me shuffling. I do a hit, go hit with a dot. Something a bit smaller. Play around with those. And then I'll finish up my spoon and turn this in so you can see the final product. Enjoy, have fun.